Welcome to Podnutz Pro, show number 55. I would describe what the show's all about, but you've probably been watching every single episode and probably sick of me describing the show. But it's about small business and routers and firewalls and clients and PCs. Oh my. The host of the show, who's still here after buying all that stock on Facebook, Matt Rainey.
Hello. That is funny because I really thought about buying it. About a week before, I'm talking to my stock guy, asking if I should buy that, and of course he talked me out of it, and I'm glad he did.
Very good.
Did you buy any?
No. No, unfortunately not.
I thought about it. I always goes down to like $2 a share, which it might go to, and then I might buy some.
How was your week?
Week so far is pretty good. It's the last week of school. So, like any holiday or any other important time of the year where their focus is diverted, it gives me a break.
There you go.
I think a lot of people are just worried about the end of school and their school activities, so I have less going on. So what happens is I get a break, so next week we'll be busy again.
Gotcha.
How about yours?
Good, just busy, more projects. Because now I'm in that part of my career where there's more projects than anything else. So it's not really client work; it's project work. So what can you do? But what is the show about tonight, sir?
Well, we got a few different topics tonight. A bunch of shorter topics. Mostly stories that have, of course, a moral to them. Yep. Something to take away from the story. Okay. Real world examples of things that you need to look for and do.
Okay.
The first one's kind of interesting. Well, they're all kind of interesting. I shouldn't say that. First one I'll start with. I get a call from a client, and this client's in a different state because we do a lot of remote work. Not all of it's nearby. It's all around the country. And in fact, around the world, sometimes for companies who have global offices. But this is a different part of the country. I get a call. So I can't just go look at it, is the reason I'm telling you where it is.
Okay.
The description I get is the person can't print when they're logged into the terminal server. Now, of course, I'll recap quickly. A terminal server it's a dedicated machine that basically accepts remote connection. So it can host multiple sessions at once. So you can have 5, 10, however many users you want connect to the machine. They each get their own desktop, if that's how you've configured it, and they can work on that just like they work on any other desktop. Now, the way it's supposed to work is they have printers, of course, on their local machine, and when they connect to the terminal server, if you've got it configured correctly, those printers will be available to you in the terminal server session. So terminal server may be, well, it's more than likely going to be located off-site somewhere, but yet it prints to your printer in your office. So,
and it's also one of those things where if a user can print, it's not as easy or obvious at times. There's some troubleshooting that has to go into resolving this issue.
Right. So I'm thinking, now, of course, this isn't the user reporting this. The user reports it to the point of contact. Point of contact send it to me. So in the course of this communication, it can always get garbled about what's actually going on. So even I can't assume that that's actually, and I don't assume that's the actual problem. That might be a symptom or something. It could be one of the things not going on. So anyway, the call is like she can't print when she's connected to the terminal server. So I give her a call. And I'm talking to her. I say, "Yeah, Carrie, here you can't print from the terminal server." "Oh yeah, ever since we had the power outage, I can't print to that printer while I'm in the terminal server." So now I'm hearing about a power outage because that wasn't relayed in the message. So now I'm asking about the power outage. Okay, so tell me about this power outage. When did this power outage happen? "Oh, it happened over the weekend, and it was a mess. There was blown circuits everywhere. There was smoke in the building. The fire department had to come out and with special cameras to see if there was fires in the wall because of all the smoke." I'm like, okay.
Worst possible situation.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I'm glad I got this description of you can't. And I'm thinking, I said, so the only thing wrong after all that is you can't print to this printer while on terminal services? Yeah, okay. Nice. Computers work fine. Yeah, it works fine. Okay. Great. So, of course, I'm assuming they're related.
Okay.
Of course, you would assume that. I mean, you got, in any troubleshooting scenario, you've got to start at a starting point. And I'm hearing about this, so I'm assuming they're related. But don't assume anything. Troubleshooting, that's the worst thing you can do, is assume anything in troubleshooting. Now, in order to print from a terminal server, you must first be able to print locally, right? Because you can't print locally when the printer maps over through terminal servers. It's not going to work.
Now,
So first,
now for those to print locally, you're saying that you log into the printer and see if you can print from the server to the printer.
well, just from their computer. So
Oh, okay, I got you.
they go to start programs, or go to the printers, see if you can do a test page right from the printer on your own machine.
Okay.
So we tried that. Nope, can't print. I said, okay. So we can't print on the terminal server because you can't print locally. So we need to resolve the local printing issue, and then the terminal server printing issue will resolve itself. So this is an IP printer. First thing you do, I can't print to it. Can I ping the IP address? Nope, can't ping the IP address.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, okay, blown circuits, smoke everywhere. I'm thinking maybe the network card on the printer is fried. Maybe
Sure.
the patch cable's fried. Maybe it could be anything along the way. A switch on the port on the switch that the printer's connected to. All that. But I can't assume that. So when I can't print to a printer, or I can't contact the printer, the first thing to do is go to the printer. I get the model number. I pull it up online so I can walk her through printing a configuration page.
And let me ask you this: so she walked over to the printer and seen that the printer was physically powered on.
Right, it is
Okay.
on.
All right.
Did ask her if it was turned on. Oh yeah, it turned on. Did you power cycle it, turn it off, turn it back on? And some of these big multifunction printers actually flip the power switch and unplug it. Take the power out from it. Then plug the power back in and turn it back on. Let it go through its whole thing. That all came up fine. Are there any error lights on the printer? Any error message on the front panel? No, everything's fine. Okay. So let's just see if we can print a configuration page from the printer. That'll tell us that the printer's working, basically. Print the configuration page. It prints fine. I said, okay. Look at what it says the IP address is. And she finds it. What is the IP address? She reads me the IP address. Well, you know what? It's not the same IP address that her printer is set to print to.
Ah.
Her printer was set up to 1.4. The printer is now 1.3. Now, I didn't set this print up originally because it was left on DHCP. So here's what happened. Power outage. Everything goes off. The computers are notebooks. They're not there. So when the router, which is doing DHCP, and the printer turned back on, who's going to grab the first IP address?
Sure.
And what do they get? The first IP in the range, which is .3. Which is why we don't leave printers on DHCP without a reservation.
Right, because throughout this whole time, it was just renewing the lease that it had every 8 days.
Right. So now I've got the right IP. I can ping that address. Now I can log into the printer. Their router is not capable of doing a reservation. So I give it a static IP outside of the scope, change the port on the computer, and now I can print. And of course, since I can print locally, I connect to the terminal server and I can print from the terminal server.
Now, for folks that are asking how you set that static IP address, you web console, so you went through the web interface of that printer.
Right. This one has a web interface. Most of these computers that have built-in network connections are going to have some type of web interface. Even print servers
Sure.
have some kind of web interface. Newer ones are going to have a web interface.
And you have to be very careful that you have the IP address and the subnet mask and the gateway all correct. Because once you hit apply and OK, at that point you might have to go on site.
Right. So yeah, and I've had people do that to where they set the wrong IP on whatever on a different scope. Now, if they remember what they put in, I'll walk them through changing the IP on the computer.
Hmm.
That way they're on the same subnet. They can get in, change the printer, go back, change the computer, and everything's fine. It just takes longer. But the end, that was the moral of this story is two of them. Whoever set his printer up left it on DHCP and just assigned IP ports on the computers with this dynamic IP address. That was wrong.
Right.
Two, I could have easily just said, "Oh well, it seems like a some kind of fried thing. Call somebody locally, go look at it." But start from even if you are absolutely sure, would you do the basic troubleshooting steps? If I couldn't have printed a test page, something you would get an error, you could go from there. But print the configuration page, check the IP. If it still had the same IP, if it said 1.4, and that's what I'm trying to print you 1.4, and I can't ping it, well, from then I might have gone on and said, okay, let's go look at the switch. Hopefully we can tell which one the printer's plugged into. Is there a link light? Can we plug it into a different port and see if we can have a different result? You have a notebook, so might have had her take her notebook, unplug the printer, the network card to the printer, plug that into your computer. Can you get a line through that wire? If you can't, it could be a problem with the patch cable, it could be a problem with the port and switch. That's the troubleshooting process I would go on that. If it didn't work, what happened?
Not sure. And I know it seems very basic or no duh, but but it happens to all of us. We overthink what the issue is. Oh, it has to be something in the router, and then come to find out that somebody tripped on the patch cable and it's hanging off
right
the card.
And I remember we got called out a while back, years ago, a really expensive printer. We had done work for them before, and they started calling somebody else for whatever reason. They were cheaper, but then they called us back because they couldn't get a printer to work, and it was almost the same exact situation. They could not get the printer to print. Now, they said they replaced the motherboard and the printer. They ran new cables. They did all kinds of things. But in the end, I went out there to go look at it, and it took me all of 3 minutes to figure out that the patch cable was a homemade patch cable.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tested, my tester failed. Put a real patch cable on it, it worked fine and printed. And they were very upset. They couldn't print for like 3 weeks to their main printer, and they were saying, "Are you telling me that this was going on for 3 weeks and they couldn't fix this, and you fixed it in 5 minutes?" I said, "You tell me. I don't know how long they've been working on it. It took me 5 minutes to figure out by basic troubleshooting what was going on. I can't ping the IP of the printer. We've verified the IP of the printer. I'm going to test cabling the next step, and they failed. Sure. I replaced it. It's done." So,
and that if you can, always carry extra cables. I always carry a 3-footer, 5-footer, 10, a 25. I mean, it's just nice to have these handy. Like Matt Rainey, you can it takes 3 seconds to just swap a cable, and if you don't have one, then, how can you further troubleshoot? So,
and they ran new cable to the printer, but used the same patch cable to hook it up. That's why they had an error with that one. So if you're going to run the whole new cable, why wouldn't you put a new patch cable? It was a 3-foot homemade patch cable. Come on.
And, real quick, just speaking about the printers, the printers that really make me just put my head down and sigh are plotters.
Oh, yes.
And first of all, they take about 32 hours to boot up because they're always warming up. And, oh, man. And they're always getting jammed up.
And they save them forever. They're so expensive. They'll keep on those things for 20 years.
No, sure. No. I agree. I agree. I mean, they will suck the life out that printer. It could have one broken leg, and hey, it's okay. It still prints.
They will not get rid of that thing. Even when they call you they say they're having problems with it, you tell them you need to replace it, but it still works. Then why did you call me? If it works, can I go? Can I leave now? Thank you. Yeah, plotters are the worst. Plotters are the worst.
Yes, sir.
Unless they get a nice new plotter. Even new plotters, like I said, even new plotter will still take forever to warm up.
Mm-hmm.
You send a test page to that thing and it hasn't warmed up, you might as well sit there for 15 minutes.
Or, you do send a test page and you hear a groan. Oh, We're trying to save ink. Well, how else can I test the plotter?